And welcome back, all my grots and gits. Today, we have to give the Custodes some freaking love because I love these guys, and I know you do too. I love my orcs, but I love my Custodes as well. Welcome back to Happy Crumpin' Wargaming, where on this channel we teach you to be the best crumper in Warhammer 40,000. So today we've got to figure out how the heck are we going to run all these amazing characters in the Adeptus Custodes. And in this video, we're going to run down all of the Custode characters. I'm not going to include the Sisters of Silence right now. This is actually just going to be the Custodes characters. And I'm going to talk to you about how I'm actually going to use them on the tabletop. And then I'm going to show you on TTS how to move them up the tabletop to get them into combat. Okay? So if you like that stuff, please smash the like button. Give me a subscribe. If you have any questions throughout the course of this video, just type them down in the comment section. I do check every single comment that there is. One last little thing. I just hit 1,000 subscribers, and that's because you guys are amazing viewers, and I really appreciate all the love and support. So I'm just going to keep on bringing the content, and we're going to keep growing as war gamers together. Let's start the video, basically. All right, so what's the role of the characters? The roles of our characters in Custodes have changed really dramatically from 9th edition. In 9th edition, they were just these madmen of just murder and destruction, or they were just bashed and you slapped them down and they would not die. I remember my unkillable bite boss from 9th edition. Holy crap, that dude tanked such an unreasonable amount of damage. Well, they don't do that anymore. So and they don't force multiply their troops nearly as much as they used to. I used to run Trajaan in between a squad of Sagittarum with another squad of Sagittarum, and all these Sagittarum would be always advancing, and they're always going to be shooting, and they're rerolling ones to hit, rerolling ones to wound. They're going to be auto-wounding them. It was just chaos. But we can't do that anymore. So we have lost a lot of what made the Custodes operate like they did in the 9th. But we have absolutely gained what makes Custodes in 10th. So let's start up with the top dog himself. How does Mr. Trajaan Valoris, the creator of the Blood games, how does he operate in 10th edition? So I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to talk about him, and then I'm going to switch the TTS view and show you exactly how I'm playing him on the tabletop. All right, so this guy is going to be leading either our Guardians or our Wardens. You can't put him with Alar's Terminators, which is sad because I would 100% run him with Alar's Terminators. But anyway, his damage profile is pretty reasonable. It's 6 attacks, strength 10, AP 2, damage 3. You don't really need me to read all the stats, so I won't. But I'm going to talk about the special abilities he does because they are really important so that you understand what he does as a leader. So this guy's only 145 points. And what he's going to do is he's going to make it so that the unit he is leading cannot have any of the characteristics or any of their hits or wound rolls modified in any single way except for the ones that you want. This is really important in a meta where barbed gaunts exist. Guys, barbed gaunts, they actually make you -2 to your movement and your advance and your charge. Trajan's unit says, don't care. That's such a powerful rule. Death Guard, which Death Guard are historically terrible matchups into Custodes, even though Death Guard aren't historically very good. Although I definitely argue with people, I think Death Guard are a lot better in 10th edition than people are giving them credit for. Anyway, they're not going to make you a minus toughness. So that's a really powerful ability. Suddenly you're no longer going to be negative to your toughness. No one who's going to be running any minus strength abilities on you is going to operate. None of this is going to affect you. And this stuff does crop up in the game a lot. So that's really, really powerful. Then he has one of 3 options. He can give himself a 2-up invuln once per game. He can give his unit fight first once per game, or he can double his attacks once per game. Now, weirdly enough, unlike in the previous edition where it was always fight twice or every now and then nullify a damage, I find myself actually using all 3 of these. I have used all 3 of these in my games so far, and they're all quite good. It's just context dependent. What I'm really going to talk about in our TTS view here is I'm going to talk about how I'm going to be running, especially with the fight first ability. Okay. Now, I'm typically running this guy with Wardens because I think his abilities just stack with the Wardens better than they stack with the Custodian Guardians. I do love the Custodian Guards. They're actually my favorite models or my favorite units in the new codex, but they're I think they've got better leaders. So I run Trajaan with the Wardens because in every single game as Custodes, one of the defining traits is how tough you are. Well, nothing's tough enough to stand on the middle objective exposed to an opponent's entire army. Until now, because now we have a block of Wardens, and a block of Wardens is probably the only unit in the game besides a block of Necron Warriors that can actually just stand right out in the open and say, come at me, bruh, because you're going to activate their Fort Feel No Pain in the shooting phase. They're going to Fort Feel No Pain. You're probably even going to spend 2 CP to make them -1 damage. So suddenly, all the damage that's coming in they're not going to die. I weathered 3 units of Desolators, and I still had a Warden left after that. Just so you understand how powerful that is. 3 units of Desolators with their crack missiles, because they drop podded in. So they got to shoot the crack missiles and the Custodes and the Vanguard launchers. And then he also had Guilliman shoot, and he had a few other shots in there. The Wardens actually survived it all. So these guys are unbelievably survivable. All right, so let me switch to a TTS view real fast. I'm going to show you how I'm going to run this guy on the tabletop. And boom, and there we are. Okay, so if you zoom in, this is one of the new terrain layouts that's from the Alpine Cup, which is a independent tournament. It's pretty big, pretty prestigious, a lot of great players. And so this is the layout they're using. And this is the layout I expect for a lot of the big tournaments to be coming out. So I think this is one that you probably want to get familiar with. I have no confirmation on who's always going to be using it as of right now. This is just Alpine Cup, so they're using it on the Copenhagen server if you play TTS at all. So what I like for my Wardens is I like to run them straight up in the middle and say, hey, bring it. Now, when you see that this wall here is actually counts as part of the ruin. So your units can't see through this unless they have the towering keyword. So they're actually still relatively safe right here from all of these firing lines. The only way you're going to be shooting them is if you're inside the ruin, if you're a knight, or if you're standing here, or here, or here. They're definitely not standing here. So really their options are stand here, or in the ruin. And that's not always the easiest thing to do. So, but anyway, these Wardens are going to tank a lot of damage here. Okay, you're going to kill a few of them. Boom, boom, boom. And then what's going to happen is you're going to charge your units into them. Let me actually load up some objects here for us. And when you send these units in, it's not going to be super pretty, because what's going to happen is you're just going to fight first. So let's say that all these guys shot. We loaded up a Repulsor Executioner. Let me drop him in there as well. He shot a bunch of shots, and he killed a bunch of these dudes. And then suddenly these intercessors are like, I have to take this objective. So they roll a charge roll, and they come all in, and they're getting ready to fight. Well, Trajan's now no longer, the Wardens don't have their defensive buffs anymore, right? So they're not in cover anymore. They are no longer getting their Fort Field of Pain, and they're no longer getting their -1 damage because your 2 CP, that stratagem, is now expired. But Trajan just says, hey, cool, you wiped out half my unit, and now I'm going to fight first. I'm going to kill your entire unit before you can even engage with me. Boom. It's so powerful to have Trajan attached to the Wardens, because after all their defensive buffs are blown, he gives them another layer of defensive buffs in the fighting phase where they're still going to wipe those infantry. It is such a big deal. People are sleeping on this so much. So I like Trajan with the Wardens. Can you run with Guardians? Absolutely. I run them with Wardens, and it's the only unit in the game where I run them into the middle of the board. And there are some times when I don't want to do it, but I'm really comfortable running them in the middle of the board. If this was going to be, a normal game, maybe I deploy them back here and I advance them into this ruin. Now, what Alpine Cup is ordering, and what most of the major tournament scenes are ordering, is they're ordering that all these windows count as closed on the first floor. So even if you were towering, you still would not be able to shoot them here, just because of that FAQ that a lot of the big tournaments are putting in. They're closing the windows on the first floor because towering is a problem. So maybe for turn 1, I run them up here, and then turn 2, I run them right up here to grab the objective. And I always run the Vexilla with a unit of 6, because that's going to give them that OC3. Really big deal. All right, guys, so that is Trajan. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. The others can go a little bit faster than Trajan. He just has a lot to talk about because he's such a value town, especially coming in at 145 points. Let's move on to Valerian. Valerian was so close to being incredible position. As is, he is usable. All right, so he's got shield captain stats, and he does have an improved spear. That spear's got an extra blip of strength and an extra blip of AP. I almost said damage. He doesn't have extra damage. But that extra blip of AP and strength is kind of a big deal, because suddenly that AP3 is cleaving through things that AP2 does not. All right, so he makes Custodes very tough in melee. What he does is he will make them basically have old armor contempt in melee. So you're going to ignore the first blip of AP in melee. That's a really big deal. His other ability lets him reroll an attack save roll. It doesn't really matter all that much, so we don't need to talk about it. He is a little bit cheaper than a normal traditional shield captain. And that's him. That's him, guys. Do I like Valerian? I think I really want to like Valerian. If Valerian's ability to make you -1 AP worked in shooting and melee, he would be an auto included in every single list. But since it's just melee, I think he functions fairly similarly to the way Trajan works. And so what's going to happen is your Wardens are going to activate their Fort Field of Pain and shooting. Basically, maybe if the entire army targets them, you're going to suffer some wounds, but the unit's still going to be intact. And then when you charge them, since you have Valerian, you have an extra additional defensive buff. So if they're charging you and they're attacking you with AP1, nothing's going to happen to you. And if they're attacking you with AP2, very little still gonna be happening to you. So Valerian is kind of like a budget Trajan-ish. So if you are really tight on points, I can actually see a world where I do run Valerian instead of Trajan. But Trajan he gives a lot of extra value. So, and I typically will be building my list around Trajan. But essentially Valerian, he's going to be running more or less the same deployment and strategy type as Mr. Trajan. So I'm not going to go back to TTS until our next dude's coming up. So this is our shield captain. Let's talk about our shield captain, guys. Shield captains are awesome in 9th edition Custodes. So in 9th edition Custodes, our shield captain has a few different abilities. One, he's going to make you have 2 kata stances, which is really strong because if you don't know your katas, these things are game changing. You're going to choose either sustained hits, lethal hits, or -1 to be hit. Defensively, -1 to be hit is freaking epic, and offensively, it's more or less always going to be sustained hits. The math on it works out, and please, if you take nothing else from this presentation, remember this. All your guys are always going to have spears in Custodes because axes suck and swords suck. So it's always going to be spears. And if you're touching an objective with guardians, you always want sustained hits because sustained hits will almost always do better than lethal hits unless you're wounding on 6s. But with a strength of 7, you're almost never going to be wounding on 6s. So it's better to get exploding 6s and then fish for 4s because they're going to get the full wound rerolls than it is to try to auto wound on 6s and not explode. Just because you're going to have those full wound rerolls. So I think I like the exploding hits more than the lethal hits in that situation. And the mathematics of it typically averages to a little more blip damage. So you're pretty much always taking sustained hits. There might be a few situations where you are winning on 6s that you want lethal hits, but those are going to be pretty rare. Now, the ability to also take a -1 to be hit is actually very, very powerful strategically. And then once per battle round, the shield captain can give a free strat to their unit, even if it's already been used. Now, this is the same across all the shield captains. So you can't do it with your Terminator captain and your normal shield captain and your bite captain. It just won't work that way. So you do have to choose which one it is. But this guy actually works really well in a units of guardians or wardens. However, I think this guy goes with the guardians. He's also going to be a potential target of enhancements. For him, you're probably going to be looking at, I can see a Veiled Blade actually works quite well because with Veiled Blade, once per game, he's going to triple his OBSEC. And if you have a banner in that unit, suddenly he by himself is going to be worth 9 models OC. And that's a really big deal. And he just gives a little extra punching power to the Warden unit, or the Guardian Warden unit. And since he's a member of the Guardian unit, he's also going to be able to get the reroll wound rolls. So he becomes quite punchy at that point. So I actually do like him with the enhancement for the Veiled Blade. Even though I do think the Veiled Blade is not necessarily a great enhancement, it can come in handy at times. So the Shield Captain is going to be running with the Guardians. I don't think I'm ever putting him with the Wardens. I think he's always going Guardians. All right. This next guy we will have to go to TTS for, but let me talk about him first. So this is the Shield Captain Terminator armor. He's quite similar in function to the Shield Captain on foot, or the normal Shield Captain. However, this guy he's different because of the unit he goes with. He's different because he goes with Terminators, and Terminators are unbelievably powerful in this game. So Terminators will always be getting full wound rerolls against vehicles, monsters, and characters. And remember, if a character joins a unit, that entire unit counts as character. So you're pretty much always getting full wound rerolls against everything that you're attacking with your Terminators. Now, because of the beauty of the rapid ingress stratagem, you actually have some really cool abilities with this Terminator block. You also have some really cool abilities if you choose not to rapid ingress him. So one of the things I put on this bad boy is I always give him Ceaseless Hunter. Well, not always, but he's definitely one of the 2 targets that I really think about for having Ceaseless Hunter. So Ceaseless Hunter is what lets you fall back, shoot, and charge. Because a unit of Terminators have a crazy amount of shooting, and you want to be using it. And if you get tied up in melee, you want to be able to fall back. You want to be able to blast all your opponents with some beautiful daka, and you want to be able to charge back in so that you can just annihilate your opponents. So the Ceaseless Hunter is such a good ability. It's also a really good ability if you just do a normal deep strike. Say you're setting them up, you deep strike in turn 2, and you're setting them up to be useful in turn 3. If in your opponent's turn 3 they move within 9 inches of you, boom, suddenly you get that free 5-inch move, and you're going to be even closer to your enemy. Or let's say they're coming to charge you after they're done moving, you move 5 inches away, make it so that their charge is very unreliable. Super important ability to have. Veiled Blade is also quite nice on them, simply for the same reason that we spoke about for the other Shield Captain. The extra attacks is really, really nice, especially when you're getting full wound rerolls. And once per game, boom, suddenly he's going to be OC9 on himself because you're going to take Infexta with his banner. I run this guy in big blobs of Terminators. They're going to be 5 or 6 mans. Let's go to TTS. I want to show how I'm going to actually drop this guy. Okay, so I'm going to just zoom out here for just a moment. So this is going to be my Terminator squad. All right, and we'll just, oh, I already have them over here, actually. So this will be my Terminator. So this is a 5-man with Vexilla and my Terminator captain. So let's say we are playing our horrible Space Marine brethren, and this Repulsor Executioners right here, and we have these Intercessors over here, and let's just load in an extra Knight as well for good measure. Boom, Knight's right there. One of the things I really like about these Terminators is you can do one of two things. One, you could rapid ingress them in, which means in their turn, they deep strike in, and they're just going to have to deep strike 9 inches away. The really nice thing about this is that in your turn, you get to move. So in your turn, you're going to get to move. Let's say this is the end of the movement phase. When do you want to do this rapid ingress? Well, I want to do this rapid ingress when I don't think that this Knight is going to be moving again. So right now, he's got a 6-inch charge. So you're going to assume that they're going to want to focus fire your wardens down. So the real goal here is you want to make this charge as hard as freaking possible for that Knight. Okay, boom, 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 boom. Let's say they kill all those wardens. So now the Knight is going to have an 8-inch charge into the wardens. So on average, he will fail that charge. What does that mean? Well, what that means is that in your turn, you're going to move 5 inches with your Terminators. And then freaking TTS. Sorry, it was just giving me some lip. I got to turn this ruin off. So in your turn, you're going to move them 5 inches. Boom. And then suddenly you only have a 4-inch charge into the Knight. That's how powerful rapid ingress is. Now, let's say that you're not rapid ingressing them. Let's say you actually started them on the board and you wanted them to just be kind of standing like, I don't know, right here. Just to show you kind of the usefulness of this. Let's say we are all standing right about here. Yeah, this is good. And this Knight is going to say, hey, listen, I want to come and shoot the hell out of these Terminators. So I'm going to walk right here. Boom. And now suddenly he can draw a line of sight on you. But he made a fatal error of moving within 9 inches. So this is an example of where the Terminators maybe started on the battlefield. Well, suddenly you get to make a full movement. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to move these guys here. Or let's say move these guys back. Move this guy back. Move this guy here. Move this guy here. Move you over here. Boom. And then move the captain over here as well. Now suddenly this Knight cannot draw a line of sight to my Terminators. See that? That's how powerful that ability is. Because this unit was about to be obliterated because that thing can shoot. But because I had that Ceaseless Hunter on him, now I moved out. And I am completely safe. And then in your turn, just move them there 5 inches back. Right? Or something like that. Freaking ruins. Sorry, guys. This can actually be a little annoying sometimes. So then in your turn, you just move them right back. And then you have suddenly your 5-inch charge into the warden where you get to crush them. So that's how powerful Ceaseless Hunter is. This is how I like to use the Terminators. I like to make them a target of the rapid ingress stratagem. I also will occasionally start them on the board because they have that redeploy stratagem, which is really, really nice. Occasionally, you just redeploy them to grab objectives or something like that as well. But Ceaseless Hunter is awesome on them, and Veiled Blade is also awesome on them. Hopefully, that's going to give you guys some really good ideas on how to utilize them. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Perfect. So that's Shield Captain Terminator armor. Let's talk about the Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jet Bike. Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jet Bike. Now, he's got the same free CP ability of the other two captains. And I haven't really spoken too much about that ability, so I will in just a moment when we go back to the TTS view. And this guy actually has one of the single best utility abilities in the entire game. It's absolutely unbelievable. So at the end of any fight phase, you can either do a full normal movement, or you can do a fallback with this unit. So that means you can move them, hell, you can even advance them 18 inches in your turn, and then at the end of the turn, move them 12 inches. That's really strong. Or more likely what's going to happen is you can move them up the board, charge a chaff unit, hopefully not kill them, and then at the end of your opponent's movement, and then when your opponent gets into it, engage with them, then in your opponent's fight turn, you just fall them back and you steal an objective. It's actually really, really powerful. It gives you a lot of utility. The problem is he has to be attached to bikes to use this, and bikes are so expensive, and they're one of the worst units in the game. They're so terrible for the amount of points they cost. They're not inherently just like bad based off of their stats, but for being 90 points and getting a lot worse than they were in 9th, you're not going to want to take bikes. So this is a very expensive unit. You're looking at 90 points for each bike, so that's 180 points, and then the bike captain is going to be 160 points. So you're looking at a 340 point unit. That is very heavy for a unit that's going to get to pull a really cool trick once in the game, and they're not going to do damage while they're at it. So I don't know if you like him. I don't like him. I'm never putting any enhancements on him because they're already way overpriced. What are you going to do? Put Custodes Hunter on him? Well, he already gets to fall back in your opponent's fight phase. So you don't need to fall back and charge in your turn. If you run him here, this is my idea of how I'm going to run him. So let me go back to TTS here. Okay, we're back to TTS. Let me just make sure. Yeah, we are. Okay. Now that we're back to TTS, let's show how I want to use these bikes. So let's say I've got a warden right here. Boom. Cool. And I want to get on this objective and then still shoot. Yeah, let's just get on this objective and still shoot. So they're here and they want to shoot their salvo launchers in the night because they think it's going to do something. Let's say they get lucky and plink 6 wounds with the knight. Well, that's really nice. Well, in your next turn, that knight is going to obliterate them, and that really sucks. But at the end of your fight phase, you could just move them again. Which is really cool. Now, their movement has been nerfed because fly is nerfed in general in the game, but that is actually a really cool ability. You can actually get out, you can shoot, you could even charge, right? So we could even do something like this. We could move them their, let's say that we want to start them here. So we can move them their full 12 inches. We can have them charge into the intercessors, fight, and then at the end of the fight phase, we could then have them move over here to move block or something. So there's lots of different abilities you can do with it. You can start them right here. You can come run them up the middle, do their 12 inches, then come right here to make sure that repulsor can't ever move out of its deployment zone. There's a lot of tricks that you can do with it. I just wish it didn't cost 340 points because the bikes suck, but with the captain, that utility is so freaking strong. If you guys are able to make it work in your games, please do it and talk to me about it. I just don't think I'm going to be able to. Now, one last little trick that I really want to mention is that this shield captain's ability to use a stratagem that even if it's already been used earlier that phase. This is really important when you're thinking about like tanking damage. Okay, let's say all of our wardens are alive, and we've got our dudes here, and so this knight wants to choose his targets. If this Knight Warden decides to target my Terminators first, and I decide to use that free stratagem to make them -1 damage, I cannot use that stratagem on the Wardens anymore. Because the way the wording works is you can use this stratagem for free, even if it's already been used by someone else. But then you can't spend CP to use it because it's already been used, and they don't have the ability to use something that's already been used. So you have to be really strategic when you want to use that stratagem, okay? So your opponent can play around it a little bit, but there's a lot of great uses for it, especially if, like, say you go second and you're right here and you're like, hey, listen, I really just want to do some damage to the Night Warden, so let's do Slayer of Nightmares to give myself +1 to wound. Or let's say you've lost one model here and you've lost a model here, where you're going to spend Vigil Ending 1 CP to resurrect your Warden, and then you'll just resurrect Terminator for free as well. So there's a lot of utility for it, but that's the way it works. So you have to really prioritize when you use that free stratagem, because if you use the free stratagem before you spent CP for it, you can't use it twice in the same phase, and that can get a little frustrating if you were planning on doing it. Okay, guys. So there is one more model that we really need to talk about, and then we're going to wrap this video up. This model is a total Chad. He is a legend. He is going to crush the souls of everyone in the world, and he's just going to do freaking amazing things. This is, of course, the Blade Champion. Some people call him the Blade Wizard, but he is truly a champion. He's very different from his last iteration. I was a huge Shadowkeepers player, so I was always having him ignore invulns against characters. I was always having him have a 3-up invuln with the Eagle Eye and all that. Can't do any of that. He's not a melee fiend anymore, although he's not bad. Now, he provides re-roll advance and charge. That is so strong on a unit of Guardians, because suddenly the average advance is going to be 3 inches. So with the reroll, the average advance is going to be a 4. Potentially even up to a 5, right? But it does generally mean that you're not going to be rolling an advance of 1 or 2. So your guys are pretty much always going to be moving at least 9 inches. 10 inches sounds pretty good. And then your charge phase, a 9-inch charge with a re-rollable is actually a 47% chance. You're almost at a 50% chance to be able to get a 9-inch charge with this guy. But it gets better because you're probably going to give him Ceaseless Hunter. Or you can actually make an argument for Unstoppable Destroyer or a Veiled Blade. I don't really like Unstoppable Destroyer that much. A few mortal wounds and the potential to battle shock some units. man, Custodes aren't worried about killing things in melee anyway, so I don't really generally concern myself about people not being able to pop strats in melee. So I'm not super excited about the Unstoppable Destroyer, but I can see some uses for it. But Ceaseless Hunter and Veiled Blade are awesome picks for this guy, because he's going to be attached to a unit of Guardians. You're never going to run him with Wardens, or at least I'm never running him with Wardens. And you're going to run him with either a small or a big blob. Let me go onto the TTS screen. I'm going to show you how I use this guy, and then we'll wrap it up for the day. All right, TTS, everyone. So this is my huge blob of Guardians here. I'm going to reposition some of this stuff. You run this squad in two different ways. You run him on the table, or you run him on the, or you run him in Deep Strike. But I'm going to go and demonstrate running him on the table here. Let's just turn these runes off as well. Make it nice and easy for me. All right, so let's position these intercessors something like here. And then we've got a Warden holding the middle, which is not an easy charge, right? Because Custodians have a 6-inch charge, have a 6-inch movement, and then you're going to have, it looks like a 7-inch. Maybe it's not the worst charge. So let's make this a little bit harder. Let's put the Night Warden right here, okay? Typically speaking, you're pretty safe in this deployment, right? Because the way that this obscuring or ruins works, none of the intercessors can see you. The Repulsor Executioner can't see you. The Knight can see you. That's just because towering is a little abusive. But that's okay. So let's say I start on the board. Well, I'm going to move them. They're 9 inches. And then I'm going to roll. And the average roll is going to make them go 3 inches. So they move 6 inches. And their average roll is going to make them go 3 inches. So on average, they're getting to 9 inches. That is pretty cool. Because suddenly, it's a 6-inch charge instead of a 9-inch charge. Now you can risk it and re-roll your advanced charge to make it better, but I wouldn't. So now in your charge phase, you get to decide whether you want to charge or whether you want to advance and charge or not. This is a lot stronger than just declaring advance and charge in the command phase, because now you get to wait to see if you got the advance that you want to make your charge roll. Because if you get a really crappy advance, maybe you're not really going to be doing anything. Maybe you're going to try to like bring them over here or something for the turn. I don't know. I don't know what you're doing with your life, but that is a possibility. But with the ability to declare the charge and advance and charge in the charge phase, that's really strong. So they go like 9 inches on average with the advance. Then it's going to be a 6-inch charge into both of these. So you're going to declare them both as a charge roll. A 6-inch re-rollable is like a, my quick math serves me right, I believe a 6-inch re-rollable is like a 90-something% chance of making it. So they're going to get in, and this big squad is going to absolutely destroy people. It's going to crush people's hopes and dreams. It is so powerful. This squad will wipe this Knight. Say they just do their 3-inch pylons. This squad, in all reality, is going to wipe both of these squads. Because right here, I have 15 attacks from these Custodians going into the Primaris Intercessors. 15 attacks with Exploding 6s is going to have you hitting 15 times. And then they're going to wound you on 3s with full wound rerolls. So you're going to have 15, maybe as little as, 13 saves. So you're going to kill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8... maybe 2 survive if they're very blessed. But chances are the whole unit's going to die just from those 3 guys. And then your guy with the banner is also going to have 6 attacks or 5 attacks. That's going to be damage 1. So he's probably going to plink another one, maybe even another 2. Chances are, though, they die. And then suddenly you have all of these guys going into the Warden. They're going to get the +1 strat, Slayer of Nightmares, obviously. So you've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 25 attacks going in, exploding on 6s. That's going to be 25 hits. And then suddenly you're going to be wounding on 4s with full rerolls. So you're going to wound with 18 to 19. The Knight is going to have a 5-up save, so he'll ignore 1/3 of those. He's going to suffer 12 to 13 wounds. That is going to be approximately 24 to 26 damage. And then the Blade Champion fights. This one unit is going to obliterate both of these squads very easily. And then they're going to hold the middle, and your opponent is going to be in a lot of trouble how they're going to take it back. The other option, of course, is you get to run those bad boys in Deep Strike. And at what point, you're going to do the rapid ingress, just like we spoke about with the Alaris. It's awesome, guys. It's so powerful, and I hope this was really, really useful for you. Our characters are awesome. You just have to run them correctly. This is how I like to run them. I can think of a few other uses, but these are the ones that are already very successful for me, and I expect to continue being super successful throughout all of this edition. As more of the edition develops, of course, we will do more videos. Until next time, you beautiful, amazing people, enjoy your crumpin', and let's get wargaming. Let's see you in the next video, everyone. Bye-bye.